Welcome to Cosmic Connections podcast. I'm Jemima Cainer and I'm here with Priya Kale.
Great to be here, Jemima. Happy new moon in Cancer.
Happy new moon in Cancer. I'm so excited to have you here, Priya. I'm even interrupting you already. So we are going to talk a little bit today about this chart that you've generated it for the new moon, and I think it'll be interesting if we can get a visual. So hopefully we're going to YouTube this so that people can see what it is that we're actually talking about, and that can demystify some of that mystique that clouds people's kind of knowledge about this, because it's so important to connect with, and we know that, right?
Absolutely. And can you see that on that note? Can you see the visual?
I can see it, yeah. So
okay.
Hopefully we should be good.
Okay, hopefully we can see it then. So yeah, let's talk about this Cancer new moon. And as we record this, we're about half an hour away from the new moon. So we're right in the womb of this new cycle, and it's powerful, it's intense. A new moon is always, as the name suggests, it's a new cycle. We've got this chart up here for you, so we're going to decode what all of this means. And this is a powerful new moon, where as it suggests, the new moon is a new cycle. And at the time of this cycle, this new moon is opposite Pluto, this guy over here, if you can see that. And also we've got Venus here, who's going to soon station retrograde on the 22nd of July. So these aspects are essentially seeding this new cycle. And we're going to see it unfold over the next 2 weeks as we move to the next full moon. So, Jemima, do you want to start?
Yeah, do you know what? I was just thinking, it's so interesting what you were. I love just listening to how you interpret the chart, because when I did another podcast about the new moon. I stood in for another astrologer that I know this month as well.
Yeah.
And what I was drawn to immediately was obviously the Pluto connection, which is like, it's blatant, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
But actually, I hardly even noticed the Venus input there. I don't think I even really referenced it, and I'm there going like, oh yeah, why didn't I? That's so strange, because I was really drawn to the Neptune trine,
right,
and the Uranus sextile, but I guess that probably more because I see them as more positive aspects, and that's
right.
I'm like honed to look for them, right? I don't know, maybe that's why I'm kind of questioning myself here, which is great. This is what it's all about, and that's what I love.
Yeah, and it's easy to sometimes, focus on one thing, and then we're like, oh, that's happening too, and that's happening too. I mean,
yeah, it's the layers, right? That's why astrology is so good.
All the major thing that's happening with this new moon is the nodes are going to shift from Scorpio and Taurus, where they've been since the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And they're going to shift to Aries and Libra. And this is major because, first of all, this new moon is in Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and the nodes of the moon are, basically the shadow of the moon. So we're going to see quite a shift in energy. And then, of course, the Pluto transit, as you mentioned, Venus. So the tides are turning, really.
Yeah, it feels like a huge turning point in the year as well, I think. Especially, this is the first new moon since the solstice, which I think is always a big kind of energetic shift in that, it's like that splitting of the year almost. But the nodes moving into cardinal signs, I think, is so important. You can really sense that. It's like, that action, that drive is very different to where they've been, because Scorpio and Taurus are fixed signs when we're talking about modalities. And for me, that's like I always start with that, because I feel like it's sort of the easiest thing to tap into, I think, along
Absolutely.
with like elements. And it's so I guess them shifting at the same point as the new moon is coming up is like significant. It seems like it's heralding massive change.
Absolutely. And it's a collective change, right? Because the nodes will affect the collective, not just the personal. I mean, it's a point of destiny. And then we also, think about, like you said, Cancer is a cardinal sign as well. So there's a sense of urgency that's happening with this new moon. It feels like,
absolutely.
It's like a sink or swim kind of moment where we need to kind of just go for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And obviously Pluto and Capricorn as well. So we've hit them all 4 quadrants, haven't we?
Exactly. And then, I mean, this is Pluto at the end of Capricorn. So we're going to have one more lunation in Capricorn while Pluto's still in the sign. And that's it. That'll be at the end of the year when the full moon happens, because then Pluto will re enter Aquarius in January next year.
Y-
So, what's come up over the last 2 weeks, and now as we enter this new cycle, it's like, okay, let go of that baggage, let go of having to let go of conditioning and really clear and make these changes over
Yeah.
the next 6 months before we fully enter the Pluto and Aquarius era next year.
Yeah, it does feel like a big push to kind of, the way I described it was like it's like Pluto giving us that push to scrape out the last of our Capricorn energy, with the moon. Like,
Right.
okay, here you go, last bit, come on, let's do this. It's like pushing you to remember how strong you are, but also, testing you about, yeah, what do you need to let go of? What can you bring forwards? What do you need from your ancestry?
Exactly.
And what is driving you? It's like examining all of that, and that's quite heavy stuff to be processing, especially like new moon energy, because you feel like you have to do something with it. It's very different in terms of just, it's not just releasing it, it's turning it into something, it's taking action, and it's forming those new beginnings, I guess.
And it is the beginning of the cycle, right? So any new moon and any conjunction for that matter is very unconscious energy, in the sense
Hmm.
that it's, first of all, there's no moon in the sky, so it's dark, which means we have to go inward to find insight and trust our inner instincts. And Cancer is a very, I mean, it's a water sign, it's a cardinal sign, but it's a very, I mean, it's a sign that rules our emotions. It's very intuitive energy. But for us to really, we're going to have to go inward to listen to our intuition, to listen to our heart, and flow with these changes that are unfolding now.
Yeah,
One
absolutely.
thing that I just wanted to add is, this morning I actually woke up dreaming, and I just had this kind of a download about these nodes shifting. And
Did you?
yeah, I mean, if you think of the nodes, we know the like one of the mythologies of the nodes, it's the head and the tail of the serpent, of a disembodied serpent. So
Okay.
the north node is the head of the serpent, and the south node is the tail of the serpent. And so the north node, I mean, in Western astrology, we say it's a point of destiny and what we're evolving towards. But in Jyotish terms, this is also the, what we call Rahu, which is the head of the serpent. So there's always this, uh, think of a head without a body. It's in, the hunger is insatiable. So
Hmm.
we're always hungering for more. And with the moon's nodes moving from Taurus to, like, north node moving from Taurus to Aries, it's like, what are we consuming right now? Is one of the things that I kind of woke up with, is what are we consuming? Like, wake up. In Aries, we're being asked to wake up to, whether it's the food we're eating, or whether it's the information that we're consuming, or, are we consuming fear? Are we consuming Mars? Now, the ruler of Aries is in Virgo.
Yeah.
So, and Mars is approaching in opposition to Saturn. So there
Yeah.
are things that we're having to let go, but we are also having to reevaluate our boundaries, or what's important, what matters to us.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff, isn't it? And I guess especially because for me, I always associate Taurus with hunger anyway. It's like
Right,
there is an insatiable appetite with Taurian energy anyway,
right.
because it's that possessive. Not you're a
It is.
Taurus, Priya, so it's not about
It's
that
true
you're
though.
possessive, but it is. It's like, it wants to really have what it's got its sights set on, right? Taurian
Right.
energy. And obviously shifting into Aries is so different. It is so different. So that waking up's like absolutely accurate, isn't it? And
And
yeah,
I
okay,
think
so like
over the past year and a half with that North Node in Taurus, we've realized, okay, you can have all of, like, if Aries says I am, Taurus says I have.
yeah,
So, and the nodes are they're shadows, they're not physical bodies. So if anything, it's an illusion that we think that, oh, if I have this, I'll be happy, or if I have that, I'll feel better, or if I have that, I'll be successful. But ultimately, that's in this material world. I mean, sure, we need things. This is coming back to Cancer, right? We need our basic necessities of food, shelter, hunger, clean water to survive. But beyond that, we don't really need very much, you know?
Yeah, you're so right. And I think it's almost like that reminder of how important it is to be questioning, or not questioning, but kind of identifying, actually, who are you then? Who are you? And
Right,
what do you need? And what is it that we are, rather than what we have? That distinction is important. So in Aries, it's like, okay, yeah, I am. So I am. We
and
are
then
our
who am I?
physical, yeah, and yeah, exactly, our family and our sense of home, and that home within yourself. So like, I always think, when I meditate or I get into that mindset of being focused intuitively, and tuning into myself and my surroundings, it's kind of going, okay, who am I? And that being present is really difficult, especially if you've had any
Right.
kind of trauma. Being present is like, we're honed to be as like, being
Right.
present is really
We
bad.
don't
It's
want to
really
be
bad if you've got
uncomfortable.
any kind of anxiety, right?
Right.
It's the thing that helps it, but actually, to get to that point, it's a lot of work. But actually,
Yes.
developing your unconscious self, and your identifying your conscious self, is so important, to be able to work out who it is you are, aside
Right.
from the trappings of your material world, aside from what you think you are. It's
Right.
about that feeling, which I think is so connected to moon in Cancer. And new moon in Cancer is like, that's potential for really understanding yourself and carrying that forward into new beginnings. That's totally different, isn't it, than, like, okay, what am I going to get this new moon? It's not about that. This is about, who are you? Who are you going to be?
With the new moon in Cancer, I'm also seeing this. It's that opposite Pluto, of course, there's a purification process that's happening. So,
Yes. And transformative, isn't it? It's
and
like,
it's
it
transformative,
pushes us to recognize that.
and it's evolutionary. So, even if you think of a pearl that's formed in an oyster, there's a source of irritation that over time ultimately produces this pearl. Over time, we've evolved with it. But to find those pearls, we have to dive deep within ourselves first.
Yeah. And Cancer's great at that, actually. I love that analogy of
Okay.
that pearl and that irritation, because you're so right. And it's like, to find that sort of gem and that inner wisdom, you have to go inwards first, and really kind of confront the darkest parts of yourself. You're
Right.
looking for something else. And that's
Right.
that Plutonian, that Pluto energy is
Ah,
stimulating that in us, isn't it? It's like, we associate with darkness and
and we're
fear and
coming
kind of
face
that
to
underworld,
face.
right?
We're coming face to face with our shadow in some way, right?
Yes.
So it's like, okay, facing our shadow and saying, okay, you know what? This no longer needs to have a hold over me. Because with Pluto and Capricorn, what are we letting go of? We're letting go of false ideas of authority and superficial conditioning surrounding success and failure, and, you know, evolving to find our own integrity in situations.
I
I mean,
love that. Pluto is retrograde as well, which is significant. It's about that, being able to let go of and shed those illusions, and those, you're so right, Priya. Those false things that we cling on to in terms of status and what we
right,
believe to be powerful. And it's about, I think, tapping into our own inner power, and
right.
that link up, that opposition, that kind of pulling in opposite directions, with the moon sort of going, hello. you know is this really
Right.
you?
And think that, this, you're right, like the retrograde is important because it could be like these familiar temptations that are arising, right? Or familiar scenarios that are arising, which in the past we've kind of given into. But this time it's like, no, I don't need to, like, that was with Cancer, you can always have waves of nostalgia.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, how can I do this differently this time? Also, with Venus stationing retrograde now, where she's 28, she's going to station at 36 on the 22nd of July. So think Venus is in Leo, which is ruled by the Sun in Cancer at the moment.
Yeah.
There's also this element of, I think, all that glitters isn't gold. So we're also peeling back to see what's really precious and what's really valuable in situations. I mean, again, and again, it comes back to, it's not, yes, money can buy us certainly a finance, with Venus, finances, relationships, matters of beauty, vanity, our creativity, all of these subjects will be highlighted. And with Cancer deals with themes of security and conversely insecurities, right?
Yeah. I think there's I don't know, when I look at this chart, I just sense this huge push for like a sense of purpose as well. And I think that's, potentially the South Node moving into Libra. That's, we're weighing stuff
Right,
up, aren't we? It's like we're looking at what is out of balance, I think.
right,
And kind of leaning into that, and
right.
what do we need to do next then to bring things back to
In,
being the way that we want them, and being able to drive that forwards in our own lives on a
right.
personal level.
I mean, that makes so much sense, right? Like the South Node for so long has been in a Mars rule sign, which is Scorpio.
Yeah.
Now it's going to end, and Taurus, which is a Venus rule sign, has been on the North Node. And now there's a switch.
Yeah.
The North Node is going to be Aries ruled, South Node will be Libra, which is Venus ruled. And yes, our relationships are balancing out, especially now Venus is also going to go retrograde. So relationships are very much highlighted with this new moon.
Yeah.
And we're rebalancing them, but it's like we want peace, but sometimes, with Libra, the danger is that we'll kind of gloss over things to keep the peace, right? And now that's not going to be possible with the North Node in Aries. So
Yeah.
sometimes to bring things into balance, we have to be able to be direct and say, okay, this is what I want, and then listen to what someone else is saying, and then we can find a compromise. But if we
Yeah.
don't even acknowledge what we want, then we end up building resentment.
Yeah, you're so right. And that's it. That Aries is so direct. It's like it pushes us to say, hey, no, this isn't quite right. And, gives us a lot of confidence to be able to do that, I think, as well, which is so
Right.
important. Like the moon is about needs, right? And if
Yeah.
we're not being honest with ourselves, and Aries is one of the most honest, is brutally honest, Aries energy. And
Sometimes.
yeah.
And it's like,
And
sure, it's a child's energy, right? At best,
yeah.
if there's innocence and curiosity, and if it's coming from a pure heart, it's fine.
Or sometimes it can be brash. It's like it
Right,
rubs people up the wrong way, but not deliberately. It's
right.
just it's direct. It's saying what it means, right? And I guess for us to address our needs, because the moon, that's what the moon rules, is it is our innermost needs. So it's
And
sort of,
Cancer rules that as well. So it's
yes,
ruled
so
by
it's
the moon.
exactly, so this is pushing us to kind of address what our needs are. And I guess it's a starting point, I think, for having those needs met, and taking action to make our
And one
lives.
other thing, I mean, because relationships are so highlighted with this lunation as well, and the territory that we're entering, Cancer rules our emotions. And it's important to know that, no one is responsible for emotions other than ourselves.
Yeah.
And no one can have power over us unless we give it away. And these are difficult lessons to acknowledge sometimes. I mean, it took me I'm still working with them, you know, but
I think we all are. I think
yeah,
it's, but
I
yeah,
think we
you're
all
right.
are.
It's really hard to hear that, I think. I mean, we've
Right.
both spoken previously about, like, toxic relationships, or being, involved in abusive cycles. And I think having somebody tell you that is what you absolutely need to hear to enable yourself to break free and empower yourself to move on from relationships that cause so much damage. But I remember the first time somebody kind of said that to me, I felt so defensive. I mean, I'm a
It's
Cancerian,
true.
so I'm defensive anyway, right? But I think it brings that out in everybody, because it's like there is a part of Cancerian energy which plays the martyr or the victim quite well.
Right.
So and I
Yeah,
can say that because I'm a Cancerian.
it's true though.
It's like we're drawn to do that. So when the moon's in Cancer, we all feel a little bit defensive, and we feel like we're a bit of a victim of circumstances, and it's like,
Right.
oh, okay, it's fine, I'll just put up with it, it's nothing I can't handle. And it's like this Pluto and Capricorn is
Right.
totally pushing back against that. I think you're right. It's pulling out the truth of the matter, and questioning about where your power is and where you're choosing to allow your power to be. So
And
it's like,
exactly.
it's that question, isn't it? It's about, are you going to empower yourself, or are you going to allow yourself to be disempowered? Because it is a
And you just
choice.
blame everyone else, and you as in one, we, I,
We, all of us,
all of us.
we all do it, and we
We
all
all do it.
yeah.
And we're all being asked to look at those patterns within ourselves right now because they're coming up. And that's the thing with anytime there's a Pluto opposition or even Pluto involved, you're going to have those victim perpetrator, triangulation kind of patterns that come up. And that's just how it plays out. But like you rightly said right now, you can't have a victim without a perpetrator, you can't have a perpetrator without a victim. So it's to break out of that cycle, we've got to own that within ourselves, whatever it is we're feeling victimized about, or feeling powerless about. Now we're finding that power within ourselves to really face our own shadow, not anything external even. And once we face that, then we're free.
Yeah.
Then we can change things. As long as we're still blaming others or circumstances or whatever else, we're going to feel powerless.
You absolutely nailed it, Priya. I
Yeah.
think that is the crux of it. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I I love this, because I feel like
Yeah.
this is like a free therapy session for me. I'm like, yes, we figured it out.
It's good though. Like
That's
we're
what
both
it
like
is.
working it out. Hopefully people are like getting something out of this too, because we're really working this out here.
Do you know what? It's great. I love working out with you. I really do. I just think you've got so much wisdom and insight, and
Oh,
it's amazing. Every time I speak to you about a chart or astrology, or even just like life, it's like I learn something, and
oh,
it's amazing. I just love it. I'm just a little bit of fangirling
likewise.
for the podcast.
Likewise. I mean, another thing we can talk about in this chart is Jupiter was square uh, Mercury just a few hours ago. And
Oh yes.
actually, the new moon, we're just like literally minutes away from the new moon right now, which is, I love it.
So the Jupiter square Mercury,
To me,
again,
yeah.
we're
No,
dealing
I
with,
want to hear what you have to say first.
I was just saying, again, we're dealing with fixed signs, right? And it's that there's a bit of a stubbornness and a bit of a slowness, I think, to change, a bit of resistance to kind of going. Neither one wants to shift, I think, with this square. Like,
Right.
but it will
But
shift. It's like
it is
inevitably it's got to. So it's
and
like
not
that
just
tension is temporary, and I think that's just important to recognize, isn't it? Is that, yeah,
yeah,
okay, even though it feels tough, it feels like it's, oh my god, how is this ever going to move into something good? How is this opportunity going to develop? How are we going to work through this, and how is
right.
this idea going to turn into an opportunity? It's like that pulling backwards and forwards, and neither one seems to be budging, but actually it is all about to budge, which is really positive.
Right, because if you look, I mean, in this new moon chart, the square is already passed, so we're already past that turning point,
We have passed it, guys.
and it's like any square to me is like inner resolution. So it's having faith in oneself, having faith in one's own ideas, you know, we don't have all the answers, but you can be honest with yourself about what you know to be true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like that. It's like you need to feel the faith in yourself as well. This Taurus, you know, Jupiter's in Taurus. It has to, you have to feel it. You have to feel it out for yourself. It's not about like just
Right.
thinking. It's like you have to kind of get out of your head with it. And Mercury in Leo is all like, you know, it's hot-headed, and kind of like focused on cerebral activity, like, okay, well, this and that, and we're thinking about it. And you know, Jupiter's there going, okay, actually tap into your senses, and then, you know, you will probably find that faith, I think.
Venus does her retrograde about every 18 to 19 months, but every 8 years she retrogrades at the same point in the sky. So it would be helpful to look back at what was going on in 2015, in the summer of 2000, summers, and depending on what hemisphere you're in, around this time of the year in 2015, 2007, 1999, 1991, and so on, just going back every 8 years. And you should start to see a pattern arising. And that would kind of give you an idea into some of the themes that might be coming up over the coming weeks. And that would be helpful to see how you want to do things differently this time.
Yeah, it's like, not knowledge is power, isn't it? So if you can tap into what has happened previously in your own life and in patterns with your own relationships, you know, you can then, or you know, your financial circumstances too. It's like, you know, there's been some major things going down of, you know, those 8-year cycles. It's like, yeah,
Right.
what's happening? And I think that's, it's kind of telling that everybody's at that same point as well. You know, we're everybody's kind of freaking out about that, and retrograde is a chance for Venus to kind of readjust what needs changing. I think, like, look back and go, okay, actually no, some of this is not working, and
Yeah.
make those changes.
We're reevaluating, right? We're like
That's
looking
the
at,
one. Yeah.
and then if you look at Leo is a sign that Venus rules the heart, but even Leo rules the heart, and creativity and love. And so our, we're reevaluating these things, like what really matters to us.
You have to wait for the timing to be right for something, and you can get, you know, something else, depending on all of our charts. It's like something else might
I
indicate
mean,
that this is a positive thing, but actually it's not going to come to fruition, or it's not going to, you know, really turn into what you maybe think. It's like there's a bit of um limbo energy, isn't there, with a retrograde?
yeah, I mean, and it's just first again, for any of this is general advice, obviously, and we'd have to look at your anyone's individual chart to really, look at what's going on. So, but that said, I mean, I've just found that things that begin during a retrograde, if they're not already, part of this narrative and story,
Yeah.
may not really last once the planet is direct.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's like, you know, it doesn't mean it's not powerful, doesn't mean it's not valuable. Something doesn't
Right.
have to last forever for it to have
Exactly.
value. But yeah,
Exactly.
you're absolutely right. Like, don't count on it too much. Or, you know, if you're about to start something, make sure you get it sorted before she moves.
Right.
So you've got a few hours, you've got a
You
couple of
got,
days,
no, well,
right?
the week is for 22nd of July. So anything major that you want to initiate, Venus related, I would do it before or then post for direct station. So, kind of to wrap up our conversation, we're in a new moon cycle, which is a chance to make a new start. We're getting a really clean slate and a chance to resurrect and transform something and really reset our lives. And depending on wherever you have Cancer in your chart, this is quite a powerful reset point. And Cancer is a sign that rules our family, our home, our physical home, as well as what makes us feel at home, our needs for emotional and financial and material security, the food we eat, the water we drink, and mothers and children and nourishment. So these are some of the themes that will be surfacing over the next couple of weeks for us.
I think that sums it up perfectly. I would not add anything. I would echo absolutely everything that you've said there, Priya.
Okay.
And especially I think, like that paternalistic energy from Capricorn, maternal love and nurturing from Cancer, and you're absolutely right, all of that supportive energy.
I mean, there's a sextile to Uranus, right? So we're kind of leaving our comfort zone in a little bit, and we're entering, something that feels new to us. But at the same time, there's something also very familiar about it.
Okay, I love that. I think it's like that freedom to be different too.
Yeah, we're not who
You're
we used to be, so how can we look at what's precious? We don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like there's a lot that we're releasing,
yeah,
but there's still something that's very precious here. So how can we nurture what's precious and pay attention to where we feed energy? Because what we feed will grow. So avoid the drama, pour your heart into what really matters to you and
absolutely.
nurture
And
that.
Neptune in Pisces trine the moon here as well is hugely supportive of that, and also it's
Yeah,
allowing us a bit of self-compassion, and and
right.
the ability to empathize with others, and to do something good.
True.
There's so much cardinal energy, but I think this Neptune in Pisces is like reminding us to act with compassion,
It's
and
true.
and to sort of seek that ideal in terms of how we give out our energy into the world, and what we share with others, and how we kind of give love, which is
Right. And it's
lovely.
so true. Like be kind, be gentler with yourself. You like everyone's feeling sensitive and a little raw.
Yeah.
So we're nurturing dreams to life, right? With that Neptune, we really are. We're materializing
Yes.
things, but we're also letting go of like historic patterns and ancient patterns to bring forth something new.
That's
Okay.
beautiful.
I hope that is helpful for everyone listening. And thank you to everybody listening because we enjoy doing this. So I hope you guys enjoy listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this again with me, Priya. You're the best.
Oh,
Let's
yeah,
do it again. Let's
yes,
do it again.
absolutely. But with that, we wish you a very happy new moon, and we will be back with you very soon.
Thank you very much. Happy new moon.
Okay.